Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast is designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is another repeat offender. We have Dave James, also known as Dave the Coach, Dave the Life Coach, Dave the Podiatrist, who's not working as a podiatrist anymore because he's helping other podiatrists and other people in the health industry just get their shit together.
Couldn't have put it better myself, really.
But
How you
that'd be
doing?
the easiest way to describe it, wouldn't it? You help people get their shit together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, God, I started off when I started off doing the coaching, it was business and marketing coaching because that's what I did, and then realized that most of the conversations I was having with people was about them first.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, let's work out why you're not doing the things that you know you should be doing, and how are you, and let's go through those conversations. So yeah, it was a big shift, huge shift. Yeah, I help people get the shit together. I like that. That might be my new LinkedIn tagline.
That should be the title of the show. Dave James, helping you get your shit together. But anyone who, if you're new to the podcast, Dave James has been on, you've been on twice before.
Twice before, I think, and I might
Really, in the early days you were on. I actually have a list of all the episodes in front of me here, and I know
episode
you
7.
were episode 7. That's right, 007, the foot magician.
Was it
And
73 as well? I was on.
and 73 video tips every podiatrist should use.
God, yeah.
Long time ago,
And
wasn't it?
it's really interesting because I was thinking when I was looking at my diary this week and I saw that we were speaking and doing this, I was like just thinking about the changes. It's 2019, so it'd be early 2019 when we first spoke.
February 2019.
2019, because I remember I was at the old house before I separated from my wife. I was sat in the lounge early in the morning recording this, going, why is this absolute legend of a man who's written books talking and asking me to speak on his podcast?
I was waiting to see who you were about to talk about. Then I realised you.
It's you, mate. It's you. But you wrote the book. You wrote the book on podiatry businesses, and I was like, this guy's messaged me and said, you want to come on to Podiatry Legends? I'm thinking, you've obviously got my name wrong somewhere. But
it was really good though. It was in the early days when I first started the podcast. It was so much fun because I could just go into all the different Facebook groups, and you could just have a look on who was active in the groups, who was saying things, who was commenting, but not being a tool about it. Was just actually always positive. Because there's a few people that post in some of the groups, I see they're just shaking my head going, why do people put up with them? Why do people why are they amused by them? And so anyway, you were looking at, and that's how I came across yourself and Jonathan Small, Tony Gavin in the early days. It was really easy because you could see the people that were active in the profession, especially in the UK, and they were lifting people up, constantly lifting people up. There were the same people in America. There were people in Australia. So it was really easy finding guests. And everyone would say the same thing. Oh, but I'm not a legend. Why would you want me on the podcast? I said, oh, I'm not a bloody legend either. I said, it's just a fun name. And then I had the occasional troll that would go, how dare you call yourselves legends? And then I'd say, of course we are.
Do you know, the troll thing's interesting. My business, you got the foot and leg magician. So I've still got a trademark somewhere, the foot and leg magician. And it reminds me, I need to give it to someone else because actually they are a true foot and leg magician.
Yeah.
But when I was networking and going out and talking about my business as a podiatrist, I would say I'm a podiatrist, and people would go, what the hell's that? And I say, well, okay, just imagine that I'm a foot and leg magician, that I find problems with your feet that you didn't know you had, and I fix them in ways which look like magic. So I had the whole foot and leg magician was part of my branding. I've still got the Facebook business page for it. And I had somebody who was a podiatrist comment on it and went, he's not a magician, he's a dick. And it was just this whole the whole trolling thing. And I remember going, but I'm doing this for a reason. And I look at it now and it's just like, I realize it tells me a huge amount about them. But you always get people trolling you. That's the fun part.
Yeah, it is. I must admit, my favorite 1-star review on my book, It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry, was from this person called Emil or something. Emil or Anal, something like that. And I read the review, and you're sort of just going, oh, I feel sorry for you and anybody who's actually associated with you, because the comments were so negative that I'm thinking, if you're helping any younger podiatrists coming through, you are just damaging them with your negativity. Because I don't mind, like if someone didn't like the book, then you don't like the book. But to read the book and then say, the biggest takeaway, if all he's telling you is to find a better location, this book isn't worth 10 quid. I mean, seriously, if that's all you got out of that book was that particular part, I'm thinking that's really, really odd. The 3-star reviews, I don't mind.
But then if you did go and move location and you made 200 grand from it, then it was a very smart move and it was a very useful book. So the thing is, I think I've got books absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And if I could take every bit of advice and every bit of information from every book and implement it, it would be an absolute miracle. I take one thing from a book at a time, and I'm lucky if I implement it. Or I'm lucky if I'm implementing it at some point. I maybe have to go back and look at 5 different books saying the same thing to get the same message to do anything about it. So I think people look at books and look for far too much stuff from it.
Yeah, I think sometimes
most books have got too much stuff in them anyway.
Oh, yeah, I even look at my own. I think I look at my book. My book was more of a story than it was. Not that it was my story, but it touched on parts of my career all the way through. But it was a story of really, this is how you put your business together. An overview of how to do it without any specifics. But sometimes I'll read a book, and like recently read Atomic Habits. I assume you've probably read it.
James Clear.
Yeah, and my God, I'm reading that book and I'm just going, I can't put this damn thing down. And I didn't. I started it like Thursday morning and I finished it 12 hours later that night and just went, that was a brilliant book. But I've had other books, I get about 25% through it and I'm going, did it just repeat itself? I'm starting to read the second half. I'm going, they're saying the same thing, just in a different color. So then I go, I think I've had enough. And I put the book down. I think every book, there's something in there.
Yeah, and you get what you need from it, and you move on. My challenge is that if I pick up a book, I like to read it from beginning to end. And if I get stuck with it, and then I find myself 2 weeks later still reading the same book, and I have to put it down because otherwise I'm not going to get anything else done. But some books, I've got things like Stolen Focus, Johan Hari on here, which is one of my. I recommend that to absolutely everyone. That I read within about a week.
What's it called?
Well, Stolen Focus by Johan Hari.
Okay.
Amazing. I mean, you can see how much I like it because it's got bent pages and it's got stuff stuck in it and there's writing in there and everything. But then there are other books I read, and I've got a pile of books down by the fireplace here, which are books where I've bought them with the intention of reading them. And I went through them a few weeks ago and went, am I really going to read those? And I've put them out of the way. Because they're probably just going to get taken to the charity shop or given to random strangers.
So what makes you decide to buy a book in the first place and then not read it? What was it about the book that made you go, oh, I want to buy that? And you buy it. Then you go, now I don't like it. What happened?
So most of those books down there are about sales, or they're about hacks, or they're about irresistible offers on how to get things or do things or set things up. And I probably the word I would use to describe them is more of a manipulation thing. It's about, here's the hack, here's the easy way to do things. And I'm like, that's great. That's really, really good. But most of the time there's not a hack or an easy way to do things. There are simple things you can do, but most of the time it takes time, it takes persistence. And it takes a deeper understanding. And those are the kind of books which I was like, yeah, I can read this. I'll learn stuff. I'll be able to implement stuff really quickly. And now I look at the title and I'm a bit of vomit in my mouth and I have to get rid of them. They're not the stuff which I'm interested in anymore. They're not interested. For me, that's not about people. That's about processes. Yeah. And I'm more interested in people. So it's very much there's a guy who's, this is a very random, but there's a guy who sexes chickens in Japan. Who can literally just pick chickens. He sexes chickens.
Oh, so right.
He will decide whether they are male or female.
I thought you said has sex with chickens. I'm going, that is a completely different thing.
Yeah, that's your other podcast. But so he literally picks them up and he can tell whether they are male or female sex. And it's that instant kind of feeling about whether they go in that bin or that bin or that bin. And it's the same with those books. I kind of pick them up and I look at them now and go, yes or no. There's no kind of
You know,
There's no kind of deeper decision. It's literally it's like it's like the Marie Kondo of books.
Yeah.
It's like, does this one give me sparkle joy? No, right. It's probably going to go at some point.
I must admit, I'm the same thing. When I see a book title and it's got, 10 hacks to do such and such, or sales tips, a lot of it's the same thing. I'm not really attracted to those types of books. I like books that just make you think, that think outside how you normally do things. And because I always think if you become a better person, everything else in your life just improves anyway.
Yeah, and do you the process for me of, and I know not everyone's a reader, and some people like audio, and some people like podcasts, and some people like going on YouTube and doing. I mean, I like all those bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But for me, sitting, and I have a lovely chair over here, right by a beautiful window, surrounded by plants. It's glorious and gorgeous. I can sit there, wrapped up in a blanket. I sound like my grandmother, and read a book. And for me, part of the actual process of reading the book is not just about reading the book to get information from it. It's actually slowing down and spending some time, not online, not, dealing with the pings and the pops of my phone and the notifications. It's actually taking myself away from the modern world and going back to something which just feels a little bit more honest.
That's a bloody great tip.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing about selling the podiatry practice, and we talked about this before we started recording. The podiatry practice was 24/7, 365 for 8 years.
Yeah.
What I do now, I still take time doing it, but I can go later on today, and I can go and take myself to a coffee shop, and I can go and sit in a coffee shop and either work, or I can go and sit in a coffee shop and read. I can sit there and watch people wandering past in their hoodies, in 15-degree temperatures in British summertime, and I can take it's a very, very different pace of life, and I'm perfectly happy with that. And I think there's a huge benefit. Those 10 hacks about how you can reach things much quicker. Hey, if you want to do that and hustle, go for it. I'm about, let's have some quality time. Let's enjoy what we're doing at a pace which works for us. So yeah, for me, it's just nice to slow down.
Yeah, I think there's a really good. I've never thought about reading in that light, and I must admit, some of the books I have read in the past where, I want to learn this, and I'm reading the book like under pressure, that I feel like I've got to get through this book in this amount of time, because when I learn this is going to make my life so much different. But when I was reading the Atomic Habits, and I sat outside, and because it's our winter at the moment, so it was a nice chilly 26 degrees when I was sitting out there. And I may have had a blanket over my feet. So I'm out there, but I'm feeling the cool breeze on me. I'm sitting outside. You could hear nature, no TV. I left my phone inside, and I was reading the book, and I just went, I didn't realize why I was enjoying it so much. But when you said then about you're actually slowing the pace of the world down, and that doesn't happen very often anymore. So I think everyone needs to pick books back up.
I think for me it's books. For other people it'll be other things. It might be sport. It might be and there's a really big connection in this for me to mindfulness, and mindfulness has been a huge part of what's happened to me over the last sort of 7-8 years, about how it's allowed me and it's encouraged me to be able to look at what I do and how I behave and my interaction with me and the rest of the world. And so mindfulness is a huge part. There's all. I mean, Atomic Habits. You take Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a brilliant book, and it's all about being much better with your habits and how you pre-commit and how you're better at getting things done. But what I see is a lot of people in the world stacking things on top of each other. It's like how can I go to the gym? How can I exercise? How can I study and learn? How can I take phone calls? How can I run my business all at the same time? Instead of going, well, okay, what if I was to 100% put my attention on the thing I'm doing now? Then what would I get from that? And I think back to the clinic. I still remember when I set up my business, my podiatry business, I was trying to do everything. I was the person taking the calls, doing the billing, doing the letters, giving the treatment, ordering the stock. And when you go, okay, what if I was to just focus on the one thing I need to do now, which is the patient in front of me, and put those tasks out to someone else, would I enjoy my job a lot more? Because I'd wager that most people who work in podiatry and run a clinic The actual podiatry is not the issue. All of the other crap which comes in from being a business owner. It's all of the other politics and the bullshit and the Facebook groups and all of that other stuff, and other people who cause the problems. The actual sitting there with a patient, I'm going to use a cheesy coaching term, but in service of them, and giving them everything they need, helping to meet their expectations. That's the important thing. But we just get burned with all the other crap on top. So changing the speed of things is huge.
Yeah, I had a coaching client recently. The same thing. We sat down and asked them, and that's the first question I usually ask them: do you love podiatry? And when somebody tells me, I really, really love being a podiatrist, it just makes my job so much easier because that's the first thing. If you don't really enjoy what you're doing every day, if you say, no, I hate podiatry, I can't stand it, I don't like looking, I don't like feet, I don't like touching them, I don't like feet at all, that's going to be really hard to improve your podiatry career. But if they say they love podiatry and you go, okay, then you can work on other aspects, whether it's the business or like with you, might be working on mindset and other areas. But you got to have that foundation first.
And it comes straight into, you know, I was speaking at primary care a couple of weeks ago before this, and talk about sort of the five kind of pillars of well-being, and one of those is meaning and purpose. If you don't like podiatry, it's fine that you don't like podiatry, as long as you have a meaning and purpose which is past that. If you're saying I'm working 40 hours a week as a podiatrist, treating people's feet to earn money so I can go and do my real passion, which is, I don't know, underwater basket weaving, whatever
pottery.
It might be.
Pottery is always
pottery. It could be, you know, I don't know. It could be phallic pottery. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Hey, can you actually think of pottery without thinking of the ghost music?
That when I had my podiatry practice, I used to do quite a lot of marketing images of me with my face edited onto something, and I do have one where my face is edited onto Patrick Swayze in that scene with the pottery from Ghost.
As long as it's not on Demi, as long as you didn't put it on Demi Moore, then it's okay.
But no, I might do that now. Just send you a card with it on, just so you can have that image. But but it is, if you're attached to a meaning and purpose outside of what you do, then that's fine. Because not you know, I know it's nice if you love your job. It's nice if you enjoy what you do, because it means those 40 hours are not a total ball ache. But if you're attached to a meaning and purpose outside of it, then you can usually weather whatever grief you get from your job.
That's true. So I love doing the podcast. I can't think of anything I enjoy more than doing the podcast, which is why a lot of people, like friends and family that listen to it, will actually say they can tell that I'm enjoying it because I'm just myself. But then I'll get the occasional person that'll send me a message and go, I hate your podcast and I hate hearing you on it. And go, well, why do you keep listening to it? Because I'm not going to change. I'm not going to all of a sudden go, change who I am to be on the podcast. But I really enjoy doing this. The same as what you probably really enjoy doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, I love it. You know, the same things for me ring true as a podiatrist, and the stuff I don't enjoy is the business stuff around the edges as much.
Yeah.
You know, I love the idea of, you know, I put a post, there was a post this morning on LinkedIn which someone was talking about, and I said, you know, I've been working for myself on and off for 13 years. And I know I'm unemployable now, which is fine, and I've got no problems with that at all. But there's certain elements of the business which I just don't enjoy. What I enjoy is the conversations with people. I enjoy, you know, talking to people. I enjoy the speaking. I mean, primary care a couple of weeks ago, I love getting up on stage and speaking about stuff. I love the practice of that. You know, when we've been at the Foot and Ankle Show together, I love doing things like that. So. And that makes it much more fun. The challenge is that the boundary between my work life and, you know, for those of you on the podcast, I am doing air quotes, which, to quote Robert Isaacs, are heavy lifting. Yeah. And my personal life is very slim, and sometimes they become one and the same, because the work I do with people is as much an extension as the work I do myself. So I was a hobby, I will sit and read a book on psychology, which is bonkers, but. Yeah, so the boundaries between the two is very, very slim, but that's just one of the things.
But I think it's a blur and everything. When a while back I did a post and I did a video, and I said I don't understand why people are too afraid to tell tell everyone, their friends and family on Facebook, that they're podiatrists. It's like they keep it a secret. For me, I was like, from the time I wake up in the morning till when I went to bed, I was a podiatrist. That's what I did. And to me, that's who I was. And I enjoyed doing it. And if I was at a barbecue and someone said, oh, my foot hurts, I would comment. I would look. I wouldn't go, oh, no, sorry, I don't like to talk. The only time I'd do that is if I was half cut and I'd had a few and people said, oh, you're a podiatrist, can you look at my foot? And I'd go, seriously? Do you really going to take anything I say seriously right now? And they go, no, probably not. But I always had cards on me. I'd go, however, here's my card. Let's get together.
I think it's interesting that for me, there's a really big identity piece around that. And I remember going through that nice evangelical stage as a podiatrist where it was like, I'm a podiatrist. This is what I do. All my life is focused upon this. And when you've done a 3-year degree in it and you've thrown yourself into it almost like work for 3 years, you're going to feel that way. And I had a number plate on my car, which was M179TOE. So it was the total sort of tosspot podiatry thing. It wasn't foot doc, although I was working out the other day how you could do foot doc as a UK number plate, and you can do it.
It's like that Seinfeld episode, Ass Man.
Yeah.
Ass Man, ASSMAN. They go, is he a proctologist?
What would we have? So foot doc would be FO07DOC. And you could do that with a 2007 one. You could do that with the plate. But I had that was my number plate. Number plate was TOE because I identified as a podiatrist. That was the center of my universe. I remember waking up one morning and going, no, I've had enough of this. I'm not. This is not how I define myself. I am me. I'm Dave.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that my role as a podiatrist is one of the identities I have, and then role as a father and role as a friend and role as a gym goer or whatever it is. So I swapped it around quite a lot, and I think it's being able to separate those different identities and play them at different points. But yeah, I think that idea of you don't. I mean, certainly from a regulatory perspective, and the same with nursing, you don't switch off, or you can't switch off being a healthcare professional, because even if you are having a drink at a barbecue, you're still judged. If you talk about your profession, you're still judged as that professional by those professional bodies.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong, it's not for me to decide, but you've always got to have that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, well, it is tough. I've had younger podiatrists work for me, and I'll say to them, when you're in the clinic 8:30 to 5:30, you're working at my business, you're representing the clinic. I said, but when you walk out here at 5:30, you're still representing my business. I said, because there'll be patients that will see you doing certain things, and they're going to judge whether they're going to come back to this business based on how you behave in public. I said, and we're always on show. I said, you just got to, it's not right, but it's just the way it is. However, it's also the same thing. You do something stupid out in public, do something silly in your personal life, and you can be deregistered for it.
Yeah.
Even if it had nothing to do with podiatry. What you do outside, you will be judged for that. So you always have to be on guard, and it's very stressful sometimes.
Yeah, it puts a huge amount of stress on things, and it makes me kind of think of something I put together years ago called the professionalism paradox, which is this idea that all the professional bodies want you to have profession front and center, right at the top, but what that means is you end up burying your personality as part of it. And you end up with a lot of people who all look the same in the name of professionalism, and actually that doesn't do anyone any service at all. But it's we're all coming at these things from different angles. We want successful businesses, and a successful business, in my opinion, is very much comes down to you as a person and who you are, and all that authenticity stuff, and showing that you can connect with people and you can solve their problems. The professionalism should be there anyway. That's the base of everything, but it's not the thing which you flash around and go, look, I've got a degree in podiatry or a master's degree in podiatry or this, because no one actually cares about that apart from us. Yeah. I have the one certificate I have on my wall still here is my master's degree, because I'm very proud of that. But I used to have a wall of certificates in my clinic, and originally they used to be in front of the patient because I wanted to show the patient how clever I was. Look at me, I'm professional, you can trust me, and then realize that actually they didn't care about that. They were more worried about what how I could sort their problems out. So instead I put solutions and advertisement on the wall for them. But I kept my certificates over in the corner, and that was my wall of academic wankery, because the only person who ever got off on that was me. And it is. I've never had in all of my podiatry degree anyone come up to me and say, "What class of podiatry degree did you get as a patient?" Never had anyone ask.
Yeah, it's true. I never ended up putting mine up. I never got around to it. I kept thinking, I'll get that in a frame one day and actually put it up, but I just never got around to doing it. Maybe I did.
I think if I die, I'm going to pass them on to my kids, and of course they're going to work. They're going to put them up on their wall, and they're going to worship them. And then when they have kids, it's going to pass down through the generations, and they'll all sit around a campfire. When we've got no electricity and we're in some kind of subatomic winter, and they'll all be there going, yeah, but remember that the great granddad Dave was a podiatrist, and we hold him in the highest esteem.
And here's the degree to prove it.
Yeah. Now my daughter said to me ages ago, she said, if you leave me with a load of shit to sort out when you die, I will not be happy. And I was like, fair enough. So it's, if I'm the only person who cares about that thing on the wall, patients don't, people don't. It's not important. All the only other people who do care about it are podiatrists. Yeah. Where did you train? What was your class of degree? But it's interesting.
It is within the whole academic world and your qualifications, and you'll see someone who sometimes I'll ask, well, hey, send me your bio, and they'll send me the bio, and I'll go, make it 120, 200 words. Let's stretch it out a little bit, and I'll get a 4,000 word thing sent through to me, and it'll be a list of the 52 peer-reviewed articles that they've written, and I'm like, wow, that must be so much better than only having 51. Because it's almost like it's an accumulation of accolades that when you're all together, you can go, yeah, but my accolade's bigger than yours. And they go, oh yeah, but have you seen my accolade in the sun? It's even better.
Yes. Have you seen it in a darkened room, lit from a certain angle?
It may not be as big, but it's got a great personality. My accolades. This is why I enjoy doing this show.
Yeah, we've descended somewhere, haven't we? It probably says as much as you need to know about us.
Well, the good part is when I get feedback from the podcast all the time, and some of the best feedback you get are these sort of conversations when they're real conversations. When you're talking about real things that people are thinking, but when you're at a podiatry conference, for example, they're the sort of things you can't always bring up in a larger group.
Yeah.
Because if you say, for example, you're at the, say if I was at the Australian National Podiatry Conference, and I stood up there on stage and I said, oh, has anybody whipped out their peer reviews yet and showed them to you and done this, or flashed their PhD, or I told you how important they were, or introduced themselves as, hi, I'm Dr. such and such, because that's what happens at these conferences. And the people that don't have the peer review articles and aren't the head of departments and universities and all the other things that tick all those boxes, it's almost like they're pushing down the person who is just a really good podiatrist. And it's almost like, oh, I'm only just a good podiatrist, so I don't feel worthy.
And it is, and it is difficult. I mean, there's always positioning in these things, and it depends in which arena you're playing. If you're playing in an academic arena, then 52 peer-reviewed papers is really important. If you're sat in front of a patient who's got a corn, 52 peer-reviewed articles are less important, and it's knowing when to play that card and also understanding what you're playing it for. I know when I spoke a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about well-being. I was talking about well-being and mental fitness and mental health. And it was a Thursday morning. It was a really good turnout. And I was surprised because most people don't want to talk about this stuff. I don't want to listen to this stuff. Yeah. And I said at the beginning, I said, most of you don't want to listen to this. I said, you're not here for this. You're here because you either want to know 10 new ways to treat heel pain, or you want to see how many free pens you can get from the exhibitors. And that, and turning around and actually kind of calling out what people are really thinking and putting it in front of the world, it makes it much easier to deal with, because half the time we're thinking these things in the background anyway. We just don't like to say them because we're worried about what other people might think. Actually, most people are thinking the same things. Actually, I am here. I'm not here to learn anything new. I'm not here to have my practice challenged or change anything majorly. I'm here because I get CPD points, which means I can appease the regulators. I'm here to meet mates of mine and have hugs, which, to be fair, that's probably what I was there for, because I got so many hugs. It was lovely. It was so nice to be part of that community. And I'm here to learn more about stuff I already know, or I'm here to reinforce what I already know. And if we went to these places and just said, honestly, this is what I'm here for, I think it would be so much easier to deal with those things. But most of the time, people, oh yeah, of course, I got into podiatry because I love to make people, I love to make people better. I love to, I love to care for people. I got into podiatry because I'd had podiatry treatment as a 20-year-old when I had a foot ulcer. And for me, it was something I understood. And when I didn't want to be a nurse anymore, it was just an easy thing for me. I'll go and do podiatry. I didn't have to think too much. So there's been this falling into the next thing. Do I like caring for people? Yeah, I love it. But that's not the prime motivator as to why I did it. I did it because it was an easy option. But we don't bring out we don't honestly say what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And that creates this really kind of uncomfortable internal tension. And that does have an effect physiologically. So I think if we all just turn around and we just had an environment where we could just say exactly what we're thinking and what we're feeling, life would be so much more fun.
But I remember when, like going back so many years ago, people would say to me, I asked them, why'd you get into podiatry? I said, money.
Yeah.
And they go, what? I said, I got into podiatry because no one ever died. Everything could wait till tomorrow. And even though, yes, I know there's some people listening to this and you can be dealing with high-risk patients and things can go wrong. I know all that. But for the average patient that used to walk into my clinic, they were not dying. Not that day anyway. Some of them didn't have much longer, but they weren't going to die that day or from anything I was doing. So no one ever died. Everything could wait till tomorrow. To set up a clinic didn't cost you an arm and a leg. You didn't have to work for 10 years to save up the money like a dentist or invest $500,000 into setting up a clinic. And the returns on your investment were quite good. So I knew I could work for myself. I knew by looking at other businesses, and I was always prepared to learn and see what other people were doing. And if I saw a clinic doing something that I wasn't doing that was really good, I'd go, okay, I'm going to introduce that. So it was something that I really loved, the business side of podiatry as well. And I knew if I did it right and I looked after my patients, they're going to pay me really well to do that. So I didn't have a hang up at all just saying, it's no secret, there's money in podiatry. That's why I wrote the book. But the book at no stage really talks about money. It talks about the business, talks about the patient. But years ago, when I wrote that book, or if I said to them, I got into podiatry for the money, people go, oh, how dare you? You're supposed to care about people. And I do care about people, but I also care about money. Well, they say people don't care about money will lie about other things too.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, I know totally what my money mindset is. Money is not a motivator for me. Do I like money? Yeah. Do I like nice things? Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But now I care about things in a very different way. But I also appreciate that there's two levels to this. That if I would love to write a book where I turn around and say, you know what, you can create an amazing business which will nourish your soul based on happiness, love, and hugs. But I also realize that underneath that, you still need to have money to interact with the world. The currency of the world is currency. That it's as simple as that. So you have to have a business which is solvent, which does exactly what it needs to do. But the way I look at it and the conversations I have with people is, well, okay, do you need to earn X amount of money to be happy, or can you be happy and then you earn your X amount of money as a product of that? And I think when I see people chasing money, generally, this may be a bias of mine, they're not quite. They're still unhappy. They still
got to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're happy earning less money, brilliant. If you're happy earning more money, brilliant. Or whatever it is, I think money can be an amplifier for other things. I think money, in some respects, is a bit like alcohol. Alcohol does one of two things. You're either searching to feel, or you're trying to suppress feelings. And I think money can be the same thing as well. Money is either a way of trying to feel more and get more, or it's a way of trying to run away from something. But that's just my view. And, I'm always happy to be challenged on that. And I could be wrong. And I know that there's money mindset stuff in my past. But there is nothing wrong with turning around and saying, my motivation for doing this is. And I get people dropping into my LinkedIn inbox all the time going, do you want a $10,000 to $50,000 month in your coaching business? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be really nice. Oh, well, you have to take and do this process and do that. And I'm like, yeah, why would I do that? And they said, so you can have freedom. And I'm like, yeah, but I've got freedom now. I've got the flexibility to do what I want to do pretty much, most of the time now. I get to spend time with people who I love, people who I have nice conversations with, doing the things that I enjoy. And I get to do that now. I don't have to push it further down the road until I've got 10 million in the bank or an Afro and a Ferrari or whatever it is. I can be happy now. And it doesn't mean I'm happy all the time, because who is? But it's very interesting when you start playing with this. And I think if people can just turn around and say, this is what I'm thinking and feeling, this is my motivations, dump it out on the world and just say, I actually don't care what you think. Yeah, the life would be so much better.
Oh, definitely. I got a friend who calls me the Mexican fisherman. And have you heard the story about the Mexican fisherman?
I might have done, but I think I need to hear it again. My pride will be complete when I hear that one.
But you've probably heard the story again, and it's about this guy who's a Mexican fisherman, and he's in this small village. He goes out in his boat every day, and catches fish faster than everybody else. Within an hour or two, he's back on the beach. He's sold it all at the markets, and the rest of the day he just sits under a tree fishing and drinking Coronas. And this entrepreneur comes up to him and says, my God, how do you catch these fish? Oh, I got these special nets that I designed. He goes, do you know that if we mass produce those nets, and we got those nets onto every other fishing boat, and you just charge a percentage of them, like using these nets from you, or you set up your own boats, and we've got like 50 boats, do you know how much money you could potentially be making? And he goes, oh, no. And he goes, so you could be making this, and tells him how much, millions of dollars. He goes, if you had millions of dollars come in every day, what would you be doing right now? He said, I'd be sitting under this tree with a fishing rod drinking a Corona.
Yeah.
So the money wouldn't change his lifestyle in any way. Going out and doing that fishing in the morning he loves doing, and then he gets the rest of the day to himself to fish and drink Coronas. So it wouldn't matter how much money he had, he already had what he wanted. And that's why his friend calls me the Mexican fisherman, because he said, you could go back and open up another podiatry clinic tomorrow, or you could make 5 times more money working again as a podiatrist and what you do doing the podcast and doing coaching. He said, but then you'd have to put your fishing rod and Corona down.
Yeah. And
as a metaphor, people, I don't have a fishing rod and a Corona in my hand right now.
No, and you don't look like a Mexican either, but that's
well, that's funny too. I've sort of forgot about that part.
Yeah, see that's something we might need to rectify at some point. Using Photoshop and the new AI version of Photoshop. But it is this whole focus on more and bigger and faster, and I've got no problem with that.
No, me either.
No problem with that at all. But I just think of the for the older members of the audience, I just think of the Ferris Bueller thing where if Ferris Bueller turns around in the film Ferris Bueller's Day Off and says life moves pretty fast. Sometimes you've got to slow down and take a look. And maybe I'm just getting old now, and maybe I'm just getting a bit more sentimental. Maybe I'm just looking at things in a different way. But I've run a business where it's been 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and it was great. I've had fun with it. At the same time, it put me to the point of burnout. Do I get stressed doing what I'm doing now? Yeah, absolutely, for other reasons. But yeah, I'm not about to put down the fishing rod and the Corona. Not just yet. And it's interesting. Stepping back into podiatry would be a very easy move. Yeah, with the skill set that I've got, with the qualifications I've got, with the connections I've got, I could go today if I wanted to set up another podiatry business. In fact, I had a message yesterday. I've yet to answer this message from someone I know who was an ex-student of mine who works in academia, who said, we've got an MSK lecturing job come up. Would you be interested in it? So there's still opportunities for me to go back into it if I want to. And And while I'm looking at this message going, ooh, that could be interesting, I could have some fun with that. And I'll probably go back and say, all right, tell me the details of it. I'm interested to know what the details are. Maybe there's something to play with there. But my question is that going to affect the freedom that I have, and is it going to affect the things which I'm doing now? And what's my drive? What's my focus? What do I really want to be doing now?
Yeah, I must admit, I get more enjoyment now when I might be working with a coaching client, and their business will be turning over X amount, and 18 months later or 2 years later, the clinic is doing double what they were turning over. They're working half the amount of hours,
mm-hmm.
and they're making so much more from their business than what they ever paid me. And you sort of and you go, I feel so good though, because I know in my bio, but the last part of my bio, it actually says, Tyson will never find the cure for cancer, which is pretty obvious, not a scientist. So Tyson will never find the cure for cancer, but he hopes one day to help somebody who helps somebody who'll help somebody who does.
Mm.
So I believe that where I am right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be doing these podcasts, supposed to having crazy buggers like you on here, talking about this sort of stuff. But all it takes is one person to listen to this podcast, just like reading a good book, take 2 or 3 things away from it. Those little things change their life just enough that it then inspires somebody else to do something, that inspires somebody else. And you never know, down the track, cure for cancer could come about purely because of this episode.
Yeah. It's that one insight, which it's that knife edge, it's that tipping point, whatever you want to call it, which changes everything. And I love that. And clients I work with, some of them will come to me and say, if someone said to me, I want to make $100,000 by Friday, I'd be like, I'm probably not the coach for you. That's not what I'm interested in. But if you want to be happier, if you want to have a bit more space in your life, if you want to be more mindful about the things you're doing and make some different choices, then that's a conversation we should have. And I've had people come to me before who've gone, actually, I want this nice car and I want to earn all this money, and we've worked together and we've done the things to move them towards that if they want.
Yeah.
And then they've had this realization that actually that's not what they wanted all along. They wanted to have a better relationship with themselves, or want to have a better relationship with their partner, or they wanted to have a better relationship with work, and really just sort out a lot of the struggles they were having amongst those things to get some balance. And that, for me, that's why I do this work, is when someone turns around and goes, you know what, I'm in a much better place than I was now. Am I earning any more money? Yeah. But I'm not earning any more money because I've earned more money. I'm earning more money because I'm in a better place. That's what I enjoy. And someone asked me the other day who are the kind of people I work with. Well, I work with people who used to be like me, and who are on the same journey as me. And it's as simple as that. But happiness for me, and choice and freedom, those are the things which make the difference. What am I going to do with an extra £1 million, $1 million? Well, I can do some really cool stuff with that, but is it going to drastically change what I do on a day-to-day basis? Probably not.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a house I've been looking at where we live here in Cairns, the house at the beaches, and all I need to buy the house at the beach is an extra $1 million, and it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And Christine said to me, "What would you be prepared to do to earn that $1 million?" I said, "I already know I'm not prepared to do the work." I said, I've already made that decision. I'm not prepared to do the work to own that house, because it doesn't mean that much to me. I said, I'd love to have it, and I'd love to wake up in the morning, walk out the back, and just speed straight down onto the beach. And I know if we sold where we are here and did this, and I worked really hard, I could do that. I said, but I'm not prepared to do the work. And I think you get to that point. I don't think it matters where you are in your career. You figure out, when you know what you want, then it's not. I think you should always try and shoot beyond what you want, because it sort of drives you. But at a certain point, you're also got to know when I don't want to kill myself, or not have time with my wife, or not see my daughter, just because. What's the point in waking up that house and I miss all those years?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's okay, whether it's house, car,
and your health, to do it as well.
What's the reasoning that people have big houses? Well, they might have a big house because they've got a big family, or they might have a a big house because they like to have, you know, extra space to do stuff, or are they getting a big house because they want to say to other people, look, I've got a big house, and it's that outward projection of the hard work that they've done. I know I was listening to a podcast with a guy called Andy Puddicombe, who's the guy who invented the Headspace app, ex-monk, ex-circus performer. And he was asked a question by the person interviewing him and said, you know, what was the best thing about being a monk? And he just turned around, he said, not owning anything. Yeah. He said it was just there was the weight of owning things was quite high. He said, I didn't own anything, and it was totally freeing. And I think about, I do think a lot about, and I think I've got a post coming out on this at some point soon about the difference between safety and safe deaths. And, you know, safety for me is that you go out, you earn money to buy things, and then you put them in this beautiful house, and then you spend money to protect those things from being taken away by someone else. Whereas safeness is you go out to the world and you are confident in who you are and what you do. And it doesn't matter what happens around you. You've still got this big internal confidence about who you are and what's important to you. And I think there's one is very external, one's very internal. And I would 100% want to create safeness in everything I do rather than safety.
Yeah,
it's just my view. Sometimes... Of course, I could be totally wrong with all of that. But, you know, that's just the way I view the world now, which I enjoy it. It makes me happy. So
just you and the monk. The what I find difficult. What I find difficult is when we're having conversations like this, and I think back to my younger self when I was say 22, 23, 24, and if my younger self was listening to me now, would I be going, "It's fine for you to say future Tyson. You already have money. You already have a nice home. You have a nice car. You've got holiday places. It's easy for you to say now, once you've actually got it, that, oh, you don't actually have to work as hard." But what I found, I spent so much time in my first 10 years of my career trying to make money, and that's all I focused on. I had these blinkers on and nothing was going to get in my way. And at the end of 10 years, I didn't really have that much to show for it. But once I started realizing, let's just slow down and just do things better. Just keep improving, become a better podiatrist, and then a business owner, and just go with it. Don't push it. Just go with the flow as it builds up. Then everything just sort of fell into place. When I chilled out a bit more, things just grew faster.
Yeah, and that for me is the whole thing. You know, look at yourself, do what makes you happy, and then you radiate all this other kind of cool stuff, and you make money as a secondary thing. If you go out there to make money and that's your main focus, in some ways it can come across as desperate, and desperation is not sexy at all. But if you are confident in who you are and you're having fun, it makes a huge difference. I know if I talk to the younger version of me was, God, going through, I look at it now, I didn't realize at the time, was going through a whole host of shit. You know, we talked about it before we press record, you know, 1988 when you started as a podiatrist. So we established that earlier as to how old you are. And
we got the same haircut.
We got exactly. I had a friend at school who was abducted and murdered. And I'm saying that now in a very headspace way, which is I'm saying it as a matter of fact thing, because I'm in this moment, I'm not about to go to that place of emotion which comes with it. And I said before, I'm having therapy for that, which is perfect at the moment because it's making a huge difference. And then at 21 had a good friend of mine who died of a heart problem. I look back on my younger self and he was dealing with a whole host of trauma and trying to work out exactly what was going on in the world and dealing with a lot of anger. So my focus was really just on surviving at that point. But it's very interesting that I didn't settle on a career until, blimey, I think I was 27 when I qualified as a nurse. And then I was 32 when I qualified as a podiatrist. I can't remember now. It was about that point. It was early 30s when I qualified as a podiatrist. So I didn't start any of my careers probably until late 20s, early 30s. So I've taken a very interesting path to get there. But what I know now about people, what I know now about the things which are important to me, about traveling, about experience, about connection and community, and all of those things, I kind of wish I'd done more of those things when I was younger. But everything I did when I was younger was exactly the right thing to do at that point, because it couldn't have happened any other way. It's just
true.
one of those things.
And I do think it's, like you said, it's your experiences in life. It's your upbringing. It's what you've faced, different challenges at times. They all make you who you are, and they all drive you a certain way. So, like, I know my drive for wanting to make money when I was younger came from my dad dying when I was 17, and my life was just so fantastic. Had the world at my feet. Everything was great when I was 17 on one day, and then the next day it wasn't. It was shit. It was an awful day. And my life after that was terrible because my dad didn't have life insurance, didn't have a will. It was a really, really terrible period. And I said to myself right at that point in time, I'm never, ever, under any circumstances, going to leave my family in the same financial position that my dad did. And it's not that he did it because he didn't love us. He just didn't think about it, because he was only 49 when he died. Wasn't probably expecting it to happen. So for me, my goal was always, I'm going to work my ass off. So when I die at 49, I'm not going to leave my parents in the same boat. So I must admit, leading up to 49 was very scary. But I worked really hard for that 10 years because I just wanted to make sure I got in front. And I was so far behind when I was in my 30s. But like I said, once I slowed down and built everything up, it was fine. Then I made it to 50. And I'm still here, which is fantastic. But we're all shaped differently.
Yeah, we are all shaped differently, and that's the and everyone's journey, to use kind of cheesy phrases. Everyone's journey is different, and there's no right or wrong way to it. And some people end up luckier than others. I mean, a lot of this is down to luck anyway. It's time and place and circumstance.
Oh, hell yeah!
Good amount of luck but we don't put it down to that as much. We don't say, oh, it's down to luck. It's like, no, I worked really hard for this. I look at the relationship I have with my dad and his success in business versus mine. And you could argue on one hand that he was immensely successful in business. I look at my business. Am I as successful as him? Well, no. So for me, the game is not about comparing my success to his success. The game is comparing my success to what I think is successful. And success for me means very, very different things. Doesn't mean that it doesn't sit in the background and still influence what I do on a daily basis and some of the worries and concerns I have. But we are the product of our past, and we are the product of our upbringing, and there's so many things which we don't realize from that unconscious behavior until we go back and look at it and go, okay, that's why I'm doing it. Maybe I want to change that. Maybe actually that works really well, and I need to double down on that a bit more, or maybe I need to have a conversation with someone about that. It's fascinating when you start doing it. But how often do we slow down enough to try and understand these things? My opinion, we don't. We just keep going 10 to the dozen instead of actually going, let's have a moment to really analyze this.
Yeah.
Even if I find something which scares the shit out of me and I really don't like, and I find some things out about myself which I really don't like, what would happen if I actually stopped and looked at those in a bit more detail?
Yeah, and that's why, like Deb Johnson, who's been on the podcast a few times as well, who's like my mindset coach that lives in Cairns here, that I talk to all the time. And that's part of the reason I talk to her is, and I've said, it's not about giving me business direction. It's about challenging my thinking. The same as you challenge, like I'm sure there's people that you work with in UK and all that you just challenge their thinking. Why do you think that way? Why did I feel I had to make so much money? If someone has spoken to me when I was in my 20s and said, Tyson, why are you working 14 hours a day, setting up a business, killing yourself? Why is driving you? I think if I had actually stopped and realized, it wasn't until I was much older that I figured out why I was doing what I was doing. And when I realized that, I broke down and I was really upset. But once I knew that, then it was easy to sort of build upon that. But sometimes we just do stuff and we don't even realize why we're doing it.
Yeah. That's what humans are fascinating. Humans are fascinating and infuriating all within the same moment. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. And you look at what's happened across the world over the last 3 to 4 years, and you can see where things have been strained and where things have come to a head. And there's been some beautiful stuff which has come out of that, and there's been some pretty shitty stuff which has come out of that as well. So people are fascinating.
But the Atomic Habits book that I mentioned earlier on, we've mentioned a few times, and he's saying that all the habits that we have, they're not all bad habits. Some are good habits, some bad habits, but they're still just habits. And I think of ourselves, we're supposed to be these really intelligent beings, but sometimes we're no different to the pet dog that just knows when you put the bowl down on the ground, it's food time. They hear the back door, they open the door in the morning, and it's time to go and have a pee. And you go,
yep,
our dogs have trained really well. I go, well, or have they trained us? I need you to get out of bed at the time and open up the door for me. I need you to go and get my food. So who's trained who here? And I think a lot of our actions every day, we wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, and probably 80% of what we do it subconsciously. We're not even thinking about it. We're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
So I think I do think stopping and thinking about what we do and why we do it, and talking to people like yourself is really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we're totally conditioned to do things. You look at I've got my phone's over there at the moment. I usually stick my phone outside the door because even just having it there, it has an effect. I know that I turn all my notifications off because otherwise, if it pings or pops, I go and pick it up and have a look at it, and I'm drawn towards it. There's a reason why when you go to the local supermarket that it's laid out in a particular way. You might think, it's laid out for convenience. It's not. It's laid out because it conditions to you to do things in a particular way, like the way that they'll have chocolate bars right by the till. It's when and you go, and if you go shopping when you're hungry, there's so much that we're being guided around things, and we don't know. But that ability to stop and go, okay, what if I do this a different way? What might I get from that? You might do it a different way and go, actually, no, I'd prefer to do it the way I did it before. But that slowing down and changing things makes a huge difference. That pause, and I speak about this at some of the professional speaking association stuff I do, called the power of the pause. It's that mindful gap between something happening and you responding or reacting. There's this pause in the middle, which you can extend out to anything, and you can ask yourself the question: well, that's happened. I'd normally do that. Why don't I do something different? It's immensely powerful stuff, and it's not difficult. It's not hugely convoluted and 300 steps to get there. It's very, very simple. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's very simple.
Yeah, I've heard that before about the power of the pause. And it's like you are doing a certain action. Might be you finish dinner and you'd normally go and grab a chocolate bar or have ice cream or something. But before you do it, just stop and pause for a second. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this what? Yeah, and just that time of stopping could make you think, oh, no, I still want the ice cream. Or you may go, you know what? I don't need it tonight.
Yeah. Or I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is check my phone.
Yeah. Oh, I've stopped doing that since reading the book. Since reading Atomic Habits, straight away when I finished, I said, what's one thing I want to change straight away? And it's instead of waking up, grabbing my phone, checking my emails, checking everything else, and next thing it's half an hour later before I got out of bed, I went, no, I'm just going to get out of bed. The phone can stay there, and I'll come to it in about an hour. Yeah. When I've done a few other things, then I'll go and check my phone. And just doing that has made a huge difference to how my day starts.
Yeah. And there's so much in this around the kind of the physiology and biology stuff. And if you look at Dr. Andrew Huberman's work and the Huberman Labs podcast, where he talks about morning routines, get up in the morning, and I haven't done it yet. I will do after we've spoken. I'll go out and have a little walk, and I've got another call I'm going to take in a bit, and I'll get some daylight on my eyeballs. And so you get out and you move. There's optimal times in theory. There's optimal times when you exercise. 30 minutes after you get up, 3 hours after you get up, 11 hours after you get up, depending on. But it all depends on your physiology and how you're wired. But when you get up in the morning, get daylight on your eyeballs, you get this cortisol spike, and then you start to release chemicals, sleepy chemicals, which bookend your day, where you start to feel sleepy at the end of the day. And if you get the wrong kind of light at the end of the day, which is phones,
Yeah.
you trick your brain into thinking that, oh, it's time to be awake now, which is why people don't get to sleep at night. And things like caffeine as well. I came back to caffeine this year for the first time in something like 12 years, 12 years, 10 years, to kind of experiment with it and see what it does. And if you know when to drink caffeine, you drink caffeine first thing in the morning. Those people who go, well, I can't start my day without caffeine. Yeah, you're not actually making a difference to yourself physiologically because you haven't produced the adenosine, which gets you sleepy later in the day, until 90 minutes after you get up. So the caffeine is not actually antagonizing anything. You need to wait 90 minutes before you have a coffee. So it's all these things you can start to play around with and start to look at as to how they can help you. But it is it's almost changing the drum that you march to. Instead of marching to a drum of what everyone else is doing or what technology tells you to do, you're actually saying, you know what, I'm going to put a stop on that. I'm not going to do my phone for the first 2 hours of the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to have one day a week where I switch my phone off completely, which is what I did on Sunday. And it was amazing because I read loads and I just had just enjoyed my day. But then when I saw my mom and dad later for dinner that day, my mom said to me, you had your phone off. What if something would have happened to us? And I said, well, you wouldn't have been able to get in touch with me. And because we're so used to being available for everyone and what if somebody calls us and we're not available? But then you leave your phone on all day and no one calls you anyway. So it's interesting when you start to stop and think about this stuff and think about why you do things and how it makes you feel and what would you like to feel instead. You can start to play with stuff. And none of that has anything to do with running a podiatry business.
Not one thing. That's
not one thing, but it will have a massive effect on it.
Yeah, it's like you said, how you start the day, your routine in the morning, what you do with your phone. That when I said the other day, I sat down for 8 hours, read the Atomic Habits book, turned everything off, didn't check my emails. My wife came home in that afternoon, and I said, you know what? I haven't even turned my computer on today. The world has not ended. I said, oh, well, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to look at it tomorrow. And when I did, other than the 400 emails that were sitting there, but once I quickly just zipped through them, because 90% of it's just rubbish anyway.
Yeah.
Nothing changed. Nothing really changed. And like, I go to the States every year, and my most favorite time of travel is that 14-hour flight from Australia to Los Angeles, Brisbane to LA. It's about 13 and a half to 14 hours is my favorite time. And people go, how can you stand being on a plane that long? I said, I don't look at it that I'm on a plane that long. I look at it that it's 14 hours that no one can contact me.
Yeah.
That I can't go, I can't reach my phone. I can't do anything other than read, watch movies, drink rum. It's just, I said, it is bliss. I said, then I get off the phone, I'll get off the plane, next to my phone dings and everything's going, and it's back to reality.
And you notice as well on a plane, and I don't go on planes that often. I went to Ireland last year and it was great. You notice on a plane what happens as soon as the plane lands.
Oh, everyone jumps up, grabbing their phones out.
Absolutely, and start messaging and things like that. And it is that instinctive response. And the phone's, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but the phone's in your hand before you know what's going on. I have software on my phone which blocks certain websites and certain programs. And the reason for that is that I know that I can slip onto, I'm on Facebook before I know what's going on, and I'm scrolling Facebook and I'm finding out that Mary's dog had kittens on Thursday and has, done a skydive off the top of a tower in New Zealand. And I'm like, I really don't give a shit. But here I am absorbing people's life. And it's just that moment of, okay, what if I didn't take my phone out straight away and look at it? What if I open the back door when I sat in the garden and have my breakfast while, sat with my feet up and listen to the birds? Yeah, there's so I don't know. It sounds very kind of, very cheesy and getting out in nature.
No, I don't think so.
But just that change in what you normally do.
I know like I said before, it's the pausing, stopping and thinking about what you're doing. And some people might listen to this and go, oh yeah, that's a bit woo-woo, slow down, do all that sort of stuff. But I know when I'm on a plane, the people who get the most annoyed whenever they sit with me, because I always sit in the same seat, 27C, if you're ever looking for me, and left-hand side of the plane. Unless it's an international flight, then it's 53C. But anyway, on a domestic flight, 27C, that's where I always sit in the same spot. Person in 27A and 27B get the shits with me big time because I don't get up. When the plane stops and everyone's up and everyone's getting the bags, and I do not get out of my seat until everybody's off the plane. And they look at me and they go, "You're going to get up?" I go, "Yeah," when everyone's off. I say, "I don't need to stand. I don't need to do anything beforehand." I said, "I'm watching a movie. I'm still be watching a movie." And I just, yeah. And Christine just goes, if Christine's flying with me, "Hey, you got to get up. At some stage, you go." I said, "I'll get up. When I get up, I'm going to get up and I'll walk off a plane. I don't need to stand up beforehand for 10 minutes until they, because sometimes it's only the front door they're going to open. So I'm in no rush." And I love the person who jumps up first, sprints off the plane, and then I come moseying on down. Yeah, just plodding along. And I stand there next to him, and then my bag comes out first. And I love just giving that cheeky grin. There you go. And I go and get my bag and I walk off. The rushing didn't make any difference.
Maybe that's a goal from all of this, is that instead of trying to hack what we do in life so that everything goes faster and we're really productive, what if we flipped it the other way and we did everything we possibly could to slow things down? We get up last on the plane, our bag comes out last, we're last in the queue to go through customs.
That's me.
We're the last in the queue for the taxi. We get the last train. Just doing things at such a slow pace.
That's how I am now. I'll get off the plane at international airport and I go to the duty-free shop and I wander around for ages. I'm just going to take my time. I'm in no rush. And then I make my way. By the time I get down to customs, everyone's gone. I walk on through, wish everyone a great day. And I've just found my life is so much more enjoyable now that I'm not rushed to get to customs, standing in line with 300 other people. And I'm slowly going up, getting frustrated. I'm thinking, I might as well keep myself entertained somewhere else. So I do think I have this theory I call them blockers. And these are people who are designed. God puts these people on earth and their goal is to slow you down. You'll be walking through a shopping center and you're in a hurry to get somewhere and they'll just be standing in front of you and they're not to the left and they're not to the right. They're in the middle and you can't really get past them and they're deliberately put there to slow you down. And then you get like double blockers, be a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or it could be same-sex partners, don't want to leave anybody out. And they're holding hands and they're blocking the walkway and you go, "You are shitting me." I've taken photos of them and I've posted it on Facebook and said, blockers. But I think they're there. They're there for a purpose. They're there to slow us down. They're the person doing 40 in the 60 zone on the highway. They're all around us. And sometimes you're thinking, you know what? They don't know they're doing 40 in a 60 zone. They're just driving and probably enjoying the drive and looking around.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm totally with you on that. It's the acceptance of what's going on around you. And I know yesterday I took the kids to the cinema and we were a little bit late to get out and the traffic was awful and I ended up having to turn around and go a different route. And we got there after the film officially starts, but we know that there's 20 minutes worth of advertisements and trailers beforehand, so we know we're not going to miss anything. And I remember actually sitting in the car, caught up behind someone who was going particularly slowly, and just going, right, we'll get there when we get there. Let's just go with the flow and see what happens.
That was a blocker.
The day from 8 years ago would have really got quite mad, would have been on their bumper, would have found out where they lived and found out their family for generations, and I would have rained hellfire down on them for generations to come. In fact, I would have made it a blood oath that my children hunted down any generations they might have had in the future past my death, all because someone's going a bit slower than me. And I love to reframe this with clients. they'll be like, well, I get angry in traffic. It's like, okay, well, I want you to invent a story about why that person might have cut you up or why that person might be going slow. And it could be that they're going slow because they've just had a gender reassignment and they've come out of, or the person they're driving has just had a gender reassignment or a boob job to change them from a male to a female. And if they go more than 40 miles an hour on a 60, then the stitches will come loose.
The tackle will shift.
And everything, and they won't end up with these kind of boobs up here. They'll be boobs down by their waist, and it'll undo all the good surgery. And I say to people, you can see people laughing, and it's like, but that reason is just as plausible as the fact that somebody might be going slow because they hate you. And which one do you want to sit comfortably with? Which one makes you feel better about life? Is it the fact that you think that someone hates you, or the fact that someone is dealing with post boob surgery in a gender reassignment? Which one would you want to go with? And I know that's a really bizarre example, and people.
Well, but it's not. It's not bizarre because
you think about it.
Yeah,
we play with it.
We've driven up a range, and my wife gets car sickness driving up the range. So if I'm by myself, I'll drive the range 60 to 80 kilometers an hour. I love zipping around the corners. I find it fun. But when my wife's in the car, 40, 45, I'm just going slow, and I can see the people backed up behind me just hating me, and I'm like, you know what? I'd rather you hate me than have my wife hate me. And have her throw up in the front seat of my car. So it's a really good point. You don't know what's going on in the car in front to make them be driving. So they're probably not sitting there going, I'm going to be a real turd today. I'm going to hold up traffic on the range that goes for 19 kilometers and there is nowhere to overtake.
Yeah. But it becomes a choice how you think about those things. It becomes a choice on the story you tell. And it is funny. And I can, it reminds me of there was a story somebody made up about me, probably after about 2019, about 2020, about something in podiatry, which ended up getting posted on a forum, which was hilarious. And somebody had made up a story based on something they'd been told about me. And then they were getting really shitty and angry about this story, which they'd made up. And I remember I did a video on it where I said, it's really interesting. I said, you probably always go back to the source on information to find out what's really true, because it's quite funny when you get angry at a story that you've made up. And how often do we do that anyway? How often do we make stories up about things around us, and then we get pissy about it, and then we get frustrated about it, and then that affects our whole day, and we growl at our kids and our family and our patients and all these other people, because we've made up some bullshit story at the beginning. We've created something, and then we're reacting to what we've created. And I chuckle about it now, but I can guarantee that in the past I've been that person who has made up a story and then got angry about it, and then been a bit of a tit and a git for quite a long while afterwards. And I look at it now and I'm going, why did I spend all that time doing that? But that's just what we are and who we are as human beings. We do this all the time.
I love
but we don't know it because we're so busy running around. We don't notice that thing we're angry at is something we created. It's hilarious. It's fascinating. I love it.
A tit and a git. That just
tit and a git. Tit and a git.
Dave, this is officially the longest podcast episode I think I've done, where I haven't done a two-part thing interviewing tons of people. So you hold the record now for longest episode. Before we wrap up, if people want to reach out and say, hey, I want to talk to Dave the coach, what's the best way of getting hold? I know on Instagram they can go and look up I am Dave James. Well, they can
find me on Instagram. I don't play on Instagram very often. The place I play mostly in social media is LinkedIn.
Sorry, that wasn't Instagram. That was LinkedIn.
Is that LinkedIn?
I'm LinkedIn. Not sure what my LinkedIn is.
Is it I am Dave James on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's got here. LinkedIn is I am Dave James.
There we go. So I'm Dave James on LinkedIn. So come and find me on LinkedIn. Drop me a message there. I've got my website, which I probably need to update, which is www.davethecoach.co.uk. And email is hello@davethecoach.co.uk. But those are kind of the places I play more than anything else. So if you want to come and find out the sort of shit I normally write about in videos.
Funny you said about your website then, that you said it probably needs to be updated. I was talking to Nikki Jerd, my website friend who does the podiatry clinic websites. She does websites for podiatry clinics. She said, when somebody tells you my website probably needs to be updated, it usually probably needs to be updated.
It's got a fairly up-to-date picture on. I mean, if it's got me with a beard, then I've done something with it in the last couple of years. But most of the time I play on LinkedIn. That's where I post every day. That's where I have conversations and interact with people. But yeah, come find me if you want to have a chat. More than happy to have a chat with people. If there's something in this whole conversation which has gone on for a long time and been a beautiful conversation as always, where you go, fun. Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun. If it's something in there where you go, actually, that sounds interesting. I want to chat to Dave about it. Just come find me. We'll have a chat with you.
Yeah, it sounds good. So, Dave, I want to thank you very much for coming back on the Podiatry Legends podcast. I assume you'll be back at some stage in the future before this podcast ever comes to an end. It's just going to keep going.
Yeah, I'll be delighted to, mate. It'll probably be like my 7th career or something. I don't know.
I'll figure out what you're doing then.
I'll be a dancer or something like that. I'm not sure. It'd be something else, but
here we go. Oh yeah, and with me today is Dave, the pole dancer. He goes, oh no, I've moved on from pole dancing. Now I just do private shows.
Yeah, it'd be like a Tina Turner reference, wouldn't it? I mean,
yeah, R.I.P. That's why it popped into my head.
Yeah, be the private dancer. Yeah. A dancer for money. Okay,
a dancer for money. That's the one. Okay, Dave, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, mate. Thank you for having me.